Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia, and I'm coming to you from Germany. Today is Saturday, the 2nd of March 2019, which in itself is insane. I can't believe it's March already, which means that I'll be married in less than 4 weeks. Let's not even go there. Anyways, this is a knitting podcast. Thank you so much for joining in. If you're watching for the very first time, welcome. And if you're coming back, thank you ever so much for being a regular viewer of the show. I skipped a week last week because we spent a weekend away in Paris, which I'll talk about more later. But that means that I have a ton of stuff to show you guys. I have a couple of FOs, I have some works in progress, although not that many. I have a huge spinning show today. I have so much handspun as well as handspun projects. And then there's a haul as well, and of course I assume some of you want to hear about what we did in Paris, so I'll just keep that to the end. And also we had some questions, so maybe we'll go into the admin stuff first. First of all, I had a giveaway for the Gnome Mystery Knit-Along kit, which contained the pattern and also some mini skeins from Sabrina of Das Mondschaf. And I had asked you guys to ask me questions which I would use for future podcast episodes and such. And thank you so much to all of your questions. They were all really, really great questions, and I will answer most of them in future Q&A videos or special content videos, which I will try to have up when I'm actually on my, what's it called? Honeymoon, that's what it's called. I will answer some of them on the podcast. I may answer 2 of them today. The only questions that I won't answer are questions that are sort of in the regards of what is that yarn that you used for such and such project, because you can find all of that information in my project pages, and then maybe I will get used to actually linking my project pages underneath this video, so then you can just click right on that link and you should find everything you need there. The only other question that I'm not going to answer is a couple of people keep asking me what I do for work, and I actually answered that in my previous Q&A video, so if you just go back a couple of videos you will find that there. The winner of that giveaway has already been notified. It's Nicole from the US, and her prize has already been sent out. The second giveaway that I have to announce, I just realized I forgot to bring the prize over, so I will be right back. So another winner that I have to announce is the winner of the Happy Handspun Along, which was a knit-along that ran until the end of February to knit with some handspun, whether that was spun by yourself or by someone else. I started off really well by knitting, I think, 2 or 3 handspun hats, and then kind of dropped my game. But as you will be able to tell throughout this episode, I have been both knitting with handspun again and spinning a ton, so that has definitely worked. But I did draw a winner using random number generator, and the winner was number 19. And that is Clara of Studio C Yarns. So she's in Berlin, I think she's in Germany. And Clara, you will win this beautiful bag by Cat in the Bag Crafts. And as soon as you send me your address, I'm not sure if I have it, just send it to me again through Ravelry, and I will send that out to you. And thanks so much again to Cat in the Bag Crafts who donated this prize. I really don't want to be giving this away. This is a beautiful bag. But you deserve it, and Clara is also one of those people who has really inspired me to start spinning again, so this is going to a good home. But thank you in general to everyone who participated in the Happy Handspun Along. That was really, really inspirational to me, and I really, really enjoyed it. Talking about knit-alongs, we still have one knit-along going, which is the Stranger Brews knit-along, and that is a knit-along to knit either of one of the patterns of the Strange Brew ebook by Tin Can Knits, or make your own Strange Brew sweater based on their sort of sweater recipe. And for that, we also have 2 really, really awesome prizes. First of all, Brigitte, a lovely viewer of the podcast, is giving away a book on color wax, so we will be giving away that either at the end of the knit-along or maybe sort of as monthly prizes. I haven't really decided yet. So that will be part of the knit-along. And then Tin Can Knits are also offering up a copy of their ebook, which is so generous. And for that, I thought we will give it away separately from the knit along. So maybe those of you who either haven't bought the ebook or haven't bought anything but would like to participate have a chance to join in, because it is a paid for pattern that we're using. So I think that's a really, really great giveaway to do. I'm going to open up a thread on Ravelry specific to this ebook giveaway. And of course, I would only ask you to participate if you don't have the ebook already. If you only have the Strange Brew pattern, which you can, I think, buy by itself, that's fine. But I really want this prize to go to someone who wants to join in, and I think that's a really, really generous donation as well. So thank you to those prize donators, and we will, like I said, open up a thread for one, and the other one will be just part of the knit along. And I think that is enough for admin stuff. Let's get into some podcasting content. So, finished objects. First of all, let's have some coffee. This is my first coffee of the day in my Luke's mug, which I love. And it's so good. I love coffee, in case you didn't know, but if you've watched more than 10 minutes of any of my podcasts, you will know that already. I have finished a couple of pairs of socks. In fact, I don't have any socks on the needles, which is insane. I'm not sure if I can deal with that, but so far I've been dealing with it quite okay. The first pair of socks that I finished are these socks, and I have two of them, and they look really pretty on camera. These are my Merino Yak nylon socks, which is my first time ever knitting with a Yak sock base, which is why I bought it. I just thought it was so interesting. I got it from this dyer who I sadly think is not selling online, so this probably won't be great information for you, but in case you can find it, there you go. But it is a merino nylon Yak sock yarn, and I knit some plain vanilla socks, and I think they turned out really, really pretty. It has a slight sort of sheen to it, the yarn. It's really nice yarn, and I'm so curious to how these will wear. So you can expect that as soon as I finish this podcast, these are going on my feet, and I will report back to you on how they wear, because they are really, really soft, and I'm just so curious. So that is my first finished object. My second finished pair of socks are these, which make me so happy. This is the yarn that was specifically dyed for this podcast by my friend Ali, who has the Laughing Yaffle Etsy store. She's from the UK, and I asked her to dye a really fun neon sort of rainbow stripe yarn and sent her some inspiration pictures, and this is what she came up with, and we named this Oh Happy Day, and she did have a couple of those in her Etsy store a while back. I don't think it's coming back. Sorry about that, but if you really want some, I'm sure you could get in touch with her. And again, just for clarity's sake, I'm not paid to say anything like that, but she did give me this as a gift, which was a surprise to me. Anywho, self-strapping pair of socks. I knit most of these on the TGV, which is the train to Paris and back, which was amazing. And I mean, these are just the most beautiful socks in the history of socks. I knit plain vanilla tubes, 64 stitches, US size 1 needle, same as the other pair, by the way. And then I did afterthought heels on the train, which was really fun. And because I couldn't be bothered to really, really work so hard, these socks are matchy, as you can tell, but then I didn't match the toes, the heels, and I think they're actually quite fun. So these are crazy neon. I love them so much. And yeah, very, very excited about these. Again, afterthought heel, plain vanilla socks with a 2x2 rib, which tends to be my go-to with patterning yarn. So these are also done. And then my last finished object is going to be near impossible to show, so let's hope that in hindsight I will have taken some photos and possibly inserted them here so you can see the sweater that I'm wearing. This is the Harvest cardigan by, again, Tin Can Knits, which is a recurring theme in this podcast lately. This is a cardigan pattern, which I'm knitting for the second time. And the yarn that I used is some Icelandic yarn, which is Plötu Lopi. So you may know Let Lopi, which I think is their most well-known yarn, and this is similar, but this is actually just the roving. So this is a very fragile yarn that is then plied, I think, to create Let Lopi. This was really fun to knit up with. Don't ask me how many times I broke it. I broke it many times, the yarn, just not really while knitting it, but while weaving in ends, while pulling out my project, while accidentally sitting on my yarn, that sort of thing. But it's fine because you can just splice it back together. Anyways, I finished this, and this is a huge oversized color blocked jacket. It kind of goes to my mid-thighs, and it's exactly what I wanted. It's definitely oversized, it's super comfy, and because it is just basically knit out of roving, it is also very light. So it's super warm, very light, but nothing for those of you who are sensitive in terms of their scratchiness factor in the wool. This is definitely, I love it, but if you're sensitive, I would not recommend it. But you can see, kind of, it's super long. I kind of made it as an open front cardigan. But I did make buttonholes, and I'm glad I did, because I do think I'm going to attach buttons later today. Just because it kind of tends to fall open, but if you're really trying to stay warm, a couple of buttons would be nice. But yeah, I'm so happy with it. I'm just living in it. And I think this is going to be a great piece in terms of, you know, just wearing as a single layer when it eventually becomes spring. And this is going to be a pretty versatile garment, I think. Also, I just love it. So that is that. I didn't use very much yarn for this at all. I think less than 300 grams, which is amazing. And that just goes to show, if you knit this out of like a worsted or a DK weight yarn, you would have a super heavy garment. And while I knit this definitely at a DK gauge or something like that, I think I had an 18 stitch gauge, this is still very light, and I really like that. All right, I think that is it in terms of my finished objects, and we will move straight into some works in progress. Let's start at the top, because it's literally on top. This is my, what's it called? Strange Brew sweater. Let's talk about the yarn first. The yarn that I'm using for this is the yarn that I got on my trip to Oslo last year. This is Rauma Fenil Garn, Fenil PT2. I had a whole long story about how I had trouble knitting this to gauge, and then I ended up using the Strange Brew sweater pattern, which started the whole Stranger Brews knit along and such. So I've already talked to you about that, but this is the sweater. It's a top-down DK gauge colorwork sweaters with some short rows. In case you're interested in the charts, I have posted them on my page, on my project page on Ravelry. So again, you can find them there if you do want to make the same color work, but then of course you can do a million things with this pattern. So you can just make up your own color work or do whatever you want. Anyways, this is the yoke, and as you can see, I have finished the body of the sweater. It's all a little bit crinkled because it was in my bag. But the body is done, and yesterday I knit, I would say, 3/4 of a sleeve. So this is pretty close to completion, and I love it. I've tried this on a couple of times, and I think this is going to be a great sweater. I still absolutely love this main color, which is this super bright mustard yellow. It's colorway 4076. And yeah, I love it. I love it so much. This is definitely not going to be my last Strange Brew sweater. In fact, I may actually knit another one of these out of the same yarn, because I do have tons of Fenil Garn and the more high twist 2-ply version of this in my stash, which I had picked for projects which are not going to work out due to my gauge issues. So yeah, that is that. Maybe this will be done next week. Now I've kind of jinxed it, but I'm doing a lot of like online training and stuff for work at the moment as well, which is really cool by itself. And that also means that sometimes I can like listen to the workshop videos and knit, and that is just fantastic. So that is that, and I've kind of created chaos here, but we will clean that up, sorry neighbors, later. Where do we go from here? I have 2 new cast-ons. I'm not sure which one to show you first. Let's show you the one that is living in a Christmas bag, because it has jingles and it has glitter, but I'm just going to use this all year around. So of course, when you finish a sweater, you have to cast on another sweater. And I decided to cast on with some yarn that I have had in my stash. I really love shopping for my stash at the moment. And this yarn is actually a commercial yarn. This is Slow Wool Lino by Lana Grossa. So I'll show it to you first. But what this is a wool, I think it's even a merino. Yeah, it's a merino and linen blend. So it's an 85% merino, 15% linen blend. This is the logo. And this is a fingering weight yarn. And I bought this last fall, I think. And I really like it, and I really like the color. And this is actually a really soft yarn as well. Like, I was worried with the linen it would be rough, but it's a really nice yarn. I really like it. So I decided to cast on. This is colorway 13, by the way. I have 3 skeins, and I just wanted a really simple garment. The work has been super intense. Like, let's not even talk about it. So I really found myself wanting simple projects. Oh no, did I just drop a couple of stitches? No, I'm fine. And I was looking for a simple top-down sweater, because I think this yarn, it's going to eat up most of the patterning anyways, just by the way that, in the way that it is, you know, with the linen, it's a little bit textured, and I just wanted something simple. So I decided to get the Easy One pattern, which is a pattern by Joji Locatelli, and it is, as the name suggests, a super simple top-down sweater. I think there's a bulky one and a fingering weight one, so the fingering weight was perfect for me. It's not as boxy as the boxy sweater, which I also really like, but it's still oversized. It's on a loose gauge, so it's just everything that I wanted. So I cast it on, and you knit the back first, and then you go back and pick up some stitches for the fronts and knit both of the fronts and join up and everything. So you create this faux seam at the top, which I think is really cool. And I have finished the front, and now I am just knitting round and round. So this is joined in the round. It's hard to show you guys. It's going to be much easier next time. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I did a couple of modifications. First of all, I'm doing the smaller size, because I think you're supposed to have like 8 inches of positive ease, and that's just a little bit too much. So I'm going for the smallest size, but in terms of the armholes, I knit the second to small size, because a couple of people said that the armhole is a little bit tight, even though this is a dropped shoulder construction. So this armhole is not going to be up here, it's going to be somewhere here. And also I wanted to lower the neckline just a tiny bit, so I wrote down how I did that in my project pages, so you can find all the tiny mods there, and they're not really huge changes, they're just tiny things. And then yesterday, when I decided to join it in the round, what I decided to do is add a tiny bit of a cable that is going down both sides of the sweater. You're not really going to be able to see it right now, and I'm not sure if this is going to show up, to be honest. It may just get lost. But if it doesn't show up, I mean, it's no big deal. I just wanted a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of interest, and of course I can never not modify a pattern, so yeah. That's my Easy One for now. I'm knitting it on 3.5mm US size 4 needles. And yeah, just a super simple, it's essentially like sock knitting. You just go round and round and it knits itself. Yeah. And then I cast on another project actually quite a while ago, but yeah, I haven't showed it to you before. So I wanted to cast on a simple shawl project for the train to Paris. And as you know, we had the handspun knit along, so I thought I would just get a skein of handspun and knit a handspun shawl. That would be really nice. And then I picked a pattern which was totally awesome, but I'm using 6 different skeins of handspun yarn, so obviously that wasn't a great train project in terms of packing light and traveling light. But I cast it on nonetheless, and I have been obsessed with this, you guys. I mean, my Strange Brew was my last obsession. This is my latest obsession. And I don't want to drop stitches. So, what I am knitting is my new favorite pattern ever, which is the Night Shift shawl by Andrea Mowry. I'm sure you've heard of it. She's come out with like a shift cowl, a shift sweater, which again, I need to do that immediately. And this shawl, and she's using the, what's it called? The commercial, super expensive spin cycle, sorry. No judgment on those of you who buy spin cycle yarn, by the way. But what lots of people have been doing is they have been using their own handspun, because a spin cycle is essentially very similar, or it's a handspun style yarn where you have barber poling and all that stuff. And the pattern is written for, I think, a DK weight, but it's a pattern that you can basically knit with any weight of yarn. So what did I do? I got all my really old skeins of handspun, like single skeins, which I never knew what to do with, and started a Night Shift shawl. And oh my gosh, you guys, I love it. So you start very small, then you increase, and there are kind of different sections. And Andrea Mowry gives you a really great, proper pattern in terms of when you do what pattern and when you change colors, but she also gives you a recipe, which is what I'm doing. So I'm just switching things around whenever I feel like it. So this is basically a super scrappy project, but it's going to be an amazing shawl. So this is where we are with that. Like I said, I'm using fingering weight yarns, so this is a little bit slower than what the DK weight original version is going to be like. I went down to a 4mm needle, which is a US size 6, I think. And I just love it. I love it so much. I'm going to talk about the yarns in a second, but just look at these textures. Like, this is just such a fun textured pattern to work, and I love it. I love it to the point where I think I'm always going to have one of these on the needles. These are just so much fun. It is super potato chippy. And also, you could do this with any yarn, like seriously. I think even if you change between weights, this pattern is really forgiving. And you can just use, I've seen people use sock yarn, like Zauberball yarn, which is amazing. You can use handspun, you can do whatever the heck you want, and I love it. Also, I used to have lots and lots of single skeins of handspun, which is kind of the reason I stopped spinning, because I just didn't know what to do with them. But now I want to spin all the handspun because I want to knit all these shawls. So I'm just super, super excited about this. And I'm using super old handspun. This is actually probably my proudest handspun I've ever spun. Like, just looking at it now, I spun this like 3 years ago. Like, this is really nice yarn. I didn't know that I could spin like that, but apparently once I could. So this is a 2-ply, very light fingering weight yarn. I think it's about 500 meters of a sparkly 2-ply. And this used to be a Nunoko braid of fiber, which I think now they're called Spin Jones, but I'm not 100% sure. And I always saved this for like a special project, but then I didn't really want to knit a special project out of this. So now it's just going in the shawl. And I'm probably not going to use all of this, so I can just put it in the next shawl and the next shawl and so on. I'm also using this. I have a couple of skeins which are quite similar. This is also a 2-ply. And I'm pretty sure, but not 100%, that this is from Sarah's Texture Crafts, back when she was dying. I I have a feeling it's like a silk and BFL blend, but I'm not quite sure. Next up we have this. This is definitely from Sarah's Texture Crafts, with different kinds of fibers, and this was actually spun on my drop spindle, so this was very early in my spinning days. But this is just perfect, like you can just use these things up. The next pink skein is this monster of a skein. This is 150 grams of 2-ply BFL from Piratenwolle. I'm not sure if she still dyes fiber, but she did at some point. And again, these are all very light fingering weight yarns, which are great, but I never knew what to do with them. And then the last one I'm using, except for some smaller scraps, which I'm not going to show you, is this one. This, I'm pretty sure, is something like a Massam and silk and Shetland blend or something like that. It was one of the special blends from Fondant Fiber. Again, I spun all of these before we even moved to Munich, so these are all really old hand-spun skeins, and it's just so fun to use them all up. I'm really, really enjoying it. To the point where I thought, oh, now we need to start a night shift along as well, but I can't start a knit along for every single pattern that I fall in love with, can I? But if a couple of you are interested, we can always open up a thread and we can knit together. I'm happy about that. So that is my night shift, and I'm so excited about it. My kind of dream scenario for the future is to always have a night shift shawl on my needles, always have at least 2 sweaters, and possibly a pair of socks. Like, I feel like that would satisfy me a lot in terms of my knitting, and that would keep me entertained for years and years to come. But yeah, that's where we are now, and that's it actually for my WIPs. So I only have 2 sweaters and 1 shawl of the needles, which tempts me to cast on a pair of socks. But I also have a new plan, which I'm going to tell you right now as we move into spinning. So in terms of my spinning, I'm going to try to go chronologically just to tell you a bit of a story as we go along. I'm sorry, this is feeling very, very chatty today. First of all, before we talk about spinning, because I know some of you will ask, I have a Bliss wheel, which is a wheel by the Wool Makers. I have the single treadle, and oh my gosh, I love my Bliss. It was my first and only spinning wheel I've ever owned. I've got it about 4 years ago, and I'm in love with the wheel. I love it so much. It's a very modern wheel, so you either love or hate it. I love it. And I originally bought it because it has a really great price point as wheels go, and I kind of thought it's going to be, a good wheel for a beginner. But now I've spun a lot. I have spun a lot, and I have no intention of ever changing my wheel because it's just an amazing wheel. So the first skein I'm going to show you is one that I've already shown you as a finished object, but it just took me weeks and weeks to finish it. So this is my, I think it's pronounced Cheviot. At least that is how Knit British pronounces it, and she knows everything about spinning. If you don't listen to the Knit British audio podcast, you're missing out. Anyways, it's a Cheviot or Cheviot braid, which I got from Das Mondschaf, who is Sabrina, and I just finished it all up. It's a DK weight yarn. I think I got something like 260 meters of a chain ply, and it turned out really well. And next up, I wanted a quick spin, and I pulled out a bat that I had from a German dyer, and I'm so sorry, I don't know where I got this from. I know that I got it as Davanda closed down. Davanda was sort of like the German Etsy, and I think they've kind of merged. But anyways, I got a couple of bats from her, and this was one of them. And actually, it was 2 50-gram bats of Merino and Stellina or Angelina? Merino and Sparkle. And I have spun this into a gradient, so you can't really see it in the skein, but it's a complete gradient. I spun 2 bobbins going from yellow to red, and then 2-ply them together. So I have a 2-ply Merino Sparkle gradient yarn, and again, this is a DK weight yarn. And this is really soft. I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. Kind of got me back into spinning more. And yeah, it's super squishy because I like to underspin my singles, and then when you apply them, it just creates a sort of pearly texture, and it's amazing. And then, because I had a tiny bit left over on one bobbin, as you do, I spun the remainder as a mini, and I did a quick 3-ply. And again, it turned out really nicely. And because by that point I had ordered some more fiber but it hadn't arrived, I decided to do some more sample spinning. So I spun up this mini, and for this I just tried to go as fine as possible and then did a 3-ply. So this is a chain plied fingering weight yarn. No idea what's in it. I have a feeling it's a mini that I got with an order from Fondant Fiber, but really I don't know. It's just a piece of fluff. And I spun it up, and this may go into my night shift. And then, or kind of parallel to all of that, I really got back into the spinning and listening to spinning podcasts. And what dawned on me is the fact that I have really been into like natural woolly wools and like sheepy stuff in terms of my knitting, but why am I not doing that with my spinning? Like, it's the perfect way to, I love, different sheep breeds, and there's not that much you can find in commercial yarn. Like, everything is merino, sometimes you get a BFL, but it's very limited. So I just realized that I need to start spinning natural fibers. And also what I need to do, A, because I want to, and B, because it's super affordable, is I want to do a sweater spin. And you guys, are you ready? Dum, da, da, da. I did it. Like I said, I've been on a spinning kick. So, where do I start? I really liked this Chariot fiber, so I wanted to do that for a sweater spin, but I couldn't really find the fiber that I wanted online. So what I decided to go with for my first ever sweater spin is I decided to go with a Corriedale, and I ordered Ashford Corriedale because you don't really know what you're getting in terms of fiber, and Ashford is a wheel brand, and they had this light gray Corriedale, and you can get this at like tons of different online shops. So I got it from a German shop, I don't even know the name of, sorry. And I got 400 grams of this beautifully prepared Corriedale, and I decided to spin for a sweater. So I did a spinner's control card and everything, and decided to go for a 2-ply. So I was aiming for like a DK weight yarn because I didn't want to be spinning forever. 2-ply because it tends to even out your spinning rather than what chain plying does, which if you spin thin and thick and then you chain ply, that's going to make it even more noticeable. And I thought 4 skeins of a DK weight yarn should be enough for a sweater, and it's not going to be the biggest challenge yet. So I have 4 skeins, and I love the yarn that I'm getting. I'm loving each of the skeins. The only thing I don't love is that I'm not super consistent. So this yarn is beautiful. I don't want to compliment myself, but just the fiber and the 2-ply, and like this is I spun it and worsted, but it's still turning out super lofty, and I love this yarn. But like I said, the skeins are not super even. So my first and my last skein are pretty much the same in yardage. So this one I literally just pulled off my wheel, so this hasn't been washed yet. But these are both about 200 meters per skein. Yet this one is 230 meters and this one is 240 meters. And the 230 is actually still kind of okay, but you can definitely tell with the 240 that I don't know if I can knit these up together. If you look at them next to each other, I don't know. With this one, I must have overspun my singles. So you can see the texture is very different between these. So yeah, that is the only kind of letdown, that I think I produced enough yarn and really nice yarn, but I wonder how I'm going to knit this up into a cohesive garment. And I know that there's going to be some give, like it's going to be fine. But I don't know how much variation you can have with your handspun to get a cohesive sweater, and I can be pretty specific about the kinds of yarns that I want. So what I'm hoping is I'm going to wash this last one later, and then I will probably start with these three because they're the closest together, at least in terms of the not only the yardage but the structure of the yarn, and then I will just see how it goes. I also thought about alternating skeins, so maybe some of you have some ideas. Is that a good idea to maybe just alternate? And that way, of course, the differences in the yarns will kind of be more spread out. Anyways, if you are a spinner, you have done this before, and you have some ideas for me, do let me know. I'm interested. So that's it for my spinning. I've also been filling up my fiber stash because I had pretty much emptied it out. I think some point last year I had no spinning fiber left, and I got a little bit, but I haven't really had a spinning stash for a long time. But listening to Knit British and spinning for a sweater, I've just been so inspired. So I've been getting a lot of natural fibers. And you guys, spinning is expensive if you get hand-dyed braids. But if you get like the proper, just like the fiber, like from a mill, and you get roving, and then it gets really, really affordable. Like I got some gray Gotland to spin another sweater for like, I think the whole thing cost me about $8. I got some tweed fiber, and I got lots of sample packs, so I can spin Wensleydale, I can spin Swalesdale. What else did I get? I got a lot of sampling packs to just try different fibers, do some wool exploration, as Louise would say. And yeah, I'm just going to be showing that to you as I get to it. I also want to work on my long draw because I haven't really ever properly worked on it. I've done some long draw in the past, but I've never really worked on it, and I feel like now I'm at a very solid stage with my spinning, and it's a nice time to branch out a little. So yeah, that is it for my spinning. I think that was a very unusual spinning segment for the podcast, but I hope to continue, and I hope to those of you who aren't spinners, I didn't drag it out for too long. All right. Next up, should we do questions or should we do acquisitions? Let's do 2 questions. So one question that I got asked, which I thought was a really interesting one, and one that I wanted to answer straight away, is along the lines of, do you ever swatch? Do you knit swatches? Do you just go for it? And I know why you ask that, because you never see me swatching. And yes, I do swatch. I know that there are a lot of people who just go for it, and it's fine. And I do that sometimes, and if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. But I, for garments, pretty much always swatch. Depending on how critical swatching is. Like if you're doing a super boxy garment, I'm not really going to care if I have 10 or 12 or 14 centimeters of positive ease. Then I'm going to knit a very small swatch, or maybe I will not wash my swatch. I'm really bad at washing my swatches. But you should actually wash and block your swatch, because your yarn is going to change. But I do take shortcuts, but I do actually always knit a swatch before I knit a garment. Part of the reason why you don't ever see my swatches is because very often I will knit the swatch, keep it attached to the ball of yarn, and then when I have measured it, I will unravel it and knit it into the sweater. And that is because I always play yarn chicken, because I'm always trying to save money and not buying enough yarn for my sweaters, which you will know if you have been following this podcast recently. So often I will actually then just, reuse the yarn from the swatch. That's also a reason why I don't always swatch in the round, because if you swatch in the round, obviously you need to cut your ends, and then you can't reuse that yarn. And I always have that fear of, what if at the end I'm at the sleeve and I'm here and I need to knit 2 more inches, or 2 more centimeters, and I don't have enough yarn. Well, then I can unravel my swatch. But yeah, in general, I think swatching makes a lot of sense. because there is no such thing as getting gauge every time, because every designer has different gauges. And Ellie of Skandir has done a great podcast on that issue. It was a while back, but it just spoke from my heart. Swatch, which we can do, and sometimes I don't swatch. If you want a fitting garment, you will either need to modify the heck out of it, which sometimes I do, or you have to just be prepared that you may need to rip it out. I know lots of knitters who just start it, and if it doesn't work out, they'll just rip it out and knit it again. And if that's fine for you, that's fine. I'm not a ripper. I just don't enjoy ripping out what I've done, so I'd rather swatch at least a little bit and then have an idea where I'm going. And then once I'm knitting, I can still adjust and know that my swatch will maybe be on the tighter side or the looser side, but at least you have an idea before you're going in. So that is my swatching philosophy, but of course you can do whatever the heck you want. That's just how I do it. The other question that I thought I would answer really quickly is along the lines of, where is your acrylic stash? Because most knitters obviously start knitting with acrylic yarns and then have a huge box of acrylic yarns somewhere in the back and maybe not use them. And I will preface this with saying that I don't knit with acrylic yarns, but if you do, that is totally fine. Like, we all have different priorities and needs, and in terms of our yarn, what we wanted to do. There are different ways of knitting, and I think that's really, really important. For me personally, I'm very conscious of plastic, and I just don't enjoy acrylic personally. And I know that lots of people say it's just a cheap option, and I would say there are lots of natural yarns that are maybe not super soft, but if you like, there are affordable non-acrylic options, but you can do whatever you want. So I'm not the acrylic police, and I know that sometimes we have a bit of a sort of cliquey yarn snobbery, and everyone needs to be knitting with, I don't know, Madeline Tosh, and to that I think this should be an inclusive yarny space for everyone. But in terms of my personal acrylic history, I did actually knit my first and second sweater out of acrylic yarn. I knew that I had no idea what I was doing, so I decided to get some 100% acrylic yarn online, and I just knit a sweater because I kind of guessed that it wouldn't be the greatest sweater ever, and I was right. And I finished it, and I wore it, and I sweated like a pig. And that sweater didn't last very long, but still, it was a good experience. And I knit a couple more acrylic sweaters or acrylic blend sweaters, but I didn't knit that much of it. So I never accumulated it, to be honest. I was always a sock knitter, so I always was knitting socks with just, your wool and nylon blend. And for those sweaters, still like today, I played yarn chicken, so I didn't have very much left and very quickly moved on to drops yarn, which again is very affordable, but usually not acrylic. So I think drops is a big reason why I personally never really accumulated acrylics. So I don't actually think I have any in my stash except for like 1 or 2 bowls of yarn, like mystery yarn that I got on trips to Asia. But yeah, not sure what I would do with it. Probably knit some toys or something at some point. But yeah, that's my acrylic yarn story in case anyone was interested. So I think that's enough for the questions, and I will move on to some acquisitions. First of all, before we get to the whole Paris thing, I bought some stuff off a D-stash from a lovely viewer, but I'm not going to show that today, maybe next week, just because there's a ton of stuff. And then what else did I get that I did want to show you right away? I bought some yarn from a Swedish company, and you know my endless quest for woolly wool from different countries, because I just love like experiencing yarn. And I found this yarn. This is Ullcentrum yarn, and this is from Sweden. And you can go on the webpage and they have some really interesting information about it. I haven't studied it in detail, but it seems to be like they collect yarn and fiber from different Swedish farms and then they make it into yarn. And I found this at a German yarn store in Regensburg, their online store actually. And this stuff was on sale. I think it was like 25% off. And this is not super expensive yarn anyways. And I decided I'm saving so much that I need to buy a ton of it. And what's really interesting about this yarn, except that it's coming from Sweden and it's super woolly and sheepy, is that the way their colors work is that they have a couple of different bases. So they have a white base and they have a mild gray base and a light gray base and a dark gray base and so on. And then they seem to just dye the colors on that base. So they will not only have like a blue, but they will have a blue on white base. They have a blue on the darker gray base, on the lighter gray base, and so on. It's all in Swedish, so I can't really pronounce it, but it's really interesting. And what I wonder is, because I got a couple of different colors on different colored bases, so to speak, is if they feel a little bit different. They must be from different kinds of sheep. So I wonder what kind of sheep they're using, if it's different breeds. I don't really know. I need to find out more about it. But these are sort of sport weight yarns, 300 meters per 100 grams. And yeah, I kind of may have gotten a couple of skeins for a couple of sweaters quantities. So I got this light pink, which I just thought this is perfect. And I actually got the idea for this on this sweater because this sort of like light mild gray pink, I just thought I need a sweater in this, and then I found this. I also got this mustard yellow, which is amazing. And then I got a navy, which I forgot to bring over, and I just got one. They had these sort of hangover skeins, which are overweight. And I just thought I will get one as well, so I can do some color work if I want to, or not. We will see how it goes. So I got that. And what's really sweet is that the yarn store, they just, as a gift, they sent me this book. And this is a German book about knitting for kids that I think they published with a graphic designer or something. I'm not going to go into detail, but this is probably going to be hard to find. But for those of you who are in Germany and are interested, I will show it to you because it's just adorable. This is a full-on book for kids, and it's a story about kids who, learn about knitting in school, and it's like a whole story. And then they have here they learn about the different kinds of yarn and the different kinds of needles, and then you find out how do I cast on, and they have a couple of patterns in here, and it is just adorable. It's just so sweet. I don't really have anyone to give or read this to at the moment, but this is just adorable. And see, they're learning about different types of fabric that you can create with knitting. This is just an amazing book, and this is just going to go into my library for myself because I think this is awesome. All right. Next up, like I said, the dessinge we'll save for another time. And I know that lots of people ask me, when I went to Paris, did I go to La Bien-Aimée and did I get some yarn there? So I think I'm going to tell the story while also just chatting about our trip, and then I will be showing you yarn because yes, there is yarn. So in case you're new, my lovely fiance Kai invited me to go on a trip to Paris with him, just a weekend trip, and we went last weekend and it was amazing. It was my Christmas gift to go. We had been wanting to go to Paris for a very long time, and it just worked out perfectly. So we both took one day off work, and on Friday morning took the train to Stuttgart, and from Stuttgart we took the TGV to Paris. So we're really lucky that we can just do that, go on a train. I realize that's really, really nice, and I want to do it again. And ever since I knew that we were going to do that, of course, I had a yarn store in my mind, which is La Bien-Aimée, but I never really knew if I was going to go. And actually, up until the point where we were on the train, I hadn't decided. I was kind of like, maybe we'll go, maybe we won't. If we won't, I will save a ton of money, but maybe I should. And I didn't really know. And on the train, I kind of decided, yes, I do want to go. So we had this whole plan of arriving and then catching the metro to the hotel, and then maybe in the afternoon, maybe we might have enough time to go. But again, it was very much up in the air up until we were actually in the underground station, and I realized if we take that train and don't get off, we will actually go pretty much straight there. So then that decision was made, and with all of our luggage, before even checking into the hotel or anything, we went to La Bien-Aimée. I stopped. We got out of this metro, which is the Paris Underground, and I stopped Kai I got him to a local cafe, fed him some French pastries, and then we went, and it was amazing. So this is their card. It's really sweet. This is the logo and everything. And it is a tiny, tiny store, you guys. La Bien-Aimée is such a small little place, and it was amazing. It was so much fun to go. Amy was sadly not there, but I think there were like 3 ladies working there, and they were really nice people. I really enjoyed being there. And of course, I had to pick up some yarn. And no, I didn't take any footage. I get a lot of questions why I don't kind of show you guys yarn stories and do more vlogging and that sort of thing. And it's just not really my thing. I don't really feel comfortable. And I know that there are some stores who don't like that as well. So very sorry to disappoint there. But I had actually made a bit of a plan in terms of what I wanted to get. I kind of decided to, if I do go, I want to get 1 sweaters quantity and have something really special, possibly to take with me on our honeymoon to knit a honeymoon sweater. And then I allowed myself 1 extra skein because I knew that I was going to just find something that grabbed my attention. And that's exactly what I did. I kind of was hoping to get yarn in their fingering weight or sock base, but they didn't have very much in terms of their sock weight. It was just like 1 cubby and not very many skeins in there. But what they did have, and what I really surprisingly enjoyed, was their sport weight base. So this is La Bien-Aimée Sport, which is 325 meters of merino yarn. And this is their Andromeda colorway. And I just fell in love with this. And again, the girls in the store, they just looked at me and they knew what I wanted. And it was so funny. And so I got 3 skeins, and this is going to be a very, very special sweater for myself. And I can't wait for it. I actually had another colorway that was more like a brownie and orange tint. And I almost bought it. But then I saw this kind of in a basket at the side, and they were like, "Are you sure you don't want that?" And I realized, yes, this is totally my style. I love these speckles, and I do want to get something that is very me from a very special store, so super happy with these. And then I got like my 1 wildcard skein, and I found this, and Kai actually really liked it as well, so he convinced me to get it. And this is again in the merino sport base in the peanut butter and jelly. And again, this is just so fun. This is probably going to be a super fun hat. And yeah. And you guys, there were so many more colors that I really wanted. I almost got a sweaters quantity instead of their Yellow Brick Road colorway, which is their signature yellow. But I just couldn't decide, and obviously I didn't want to stay in the shop forever because I had company. So I got these 4 skeins, and I am super, super happy with them. I can see myself getting more of this yarn in the future. But this is it for now, and the store was just so nice. I mean, I could have spent all my money there, to be honest. Not only did they have their amazing own yarn, they also had some yarn that I really have been wanting to get, which is De Rerum Natura, which is a French, very sort of like woolly yarn. And I've been wanting to get it, but it just felt like too much. I know I'm going to get myself a sweaters quantity eventually, but it just wasn't the right space. They had amazing project bags, and they had a huge sale of like Madeline Tosh and I think Louise Harding and stuff like that, and they were like super cheap. It was a really great deal, but I was just so overwhelmed with all of it. I just decided to go with what I actually came there for, and it was just a really pleasant experience. So I would definitely recommend that if you're going. And they also gave me a sweet little tote bag, and yeah, it was really, really fun. So that is it in terms of my Yarny content. I'm just going to keep babbling now about Paris, about life, about what's been happening. So if you're not interested in that, that is 100% fine. In that case, I will just see you next week. And if you do want to stick around, I will just keep on waffling on. So where were we? Paris. So that was basically my first few hours in Paris were spent buying yarn, which is always a great start to the trip. The rest of the trip also was just amazing from start to finish. Like, you know how sometimes your holidays go really well and sometimes they're nice, but you're also looking forward to going back home. This was definitely the first. We just had such a great time. We had a hotel very close to the Eiffel Tower and close to the River Seine, and it was just perfect. Kai had done a really good job researching everything, and yeah, we just had a lot of fun just soaking in Paris, just walking around. We did so much walking. I think we did something like 13 kilometers on the last day, and yeah, my feet were so sore. And what was really special and something that I would have never really done by myself was that we actually got to have lunch on the tower. So we arrived pretty early and then took the elevator up to the first floor of the Eiffel Tower and had lunch there, which was so fun. Such a great experience. Like I said, that's never anything that I would have chosen to do, and I was really scared of the height. I was really scared, but it was fine. It wasn't bad at all. And so you go in, you have lunch, and you can kind of just look out over the river, over Trocadero, like you just see Paris in front of you. And it was quite early. It was early lunch, and you know, it was very French. So like, here's the champagne. And oh, by the way, do you want red wine or white wine? So we had a lot of fun. And one story that you as knitters are surely going to laugh at is the fact that we had coffee after our lunch. And like I said, there was a lot of red wine and a lot of champagne involved. And I managed to spill coffee all over myself. And I was wearing like a really nice sort of blouse. And I was kind of shocked for a second. And then I was, oh crap, oh no, I got coffee on my shawl. And then had a huge moment of relief when I realized that I didn't hit any of my Love You Baby wrap, which was I was wearing, my fancy shawl, and my blouse was ruined, but I didn't care. And there were some American tourists close to us, and I think they thought I was just out of my mind, but it was really fun. And my knitwear was fine, so that's the most important thing. Anyhow, besides that, we just did a lot of walking. We had amazing weather. We were really lucky. So we didn't really want to spend the days in museums. We did more like walking around and just looking at things and having lots of French food. And it was a great time from beginning to end, and I really want to go back immediately. In fact, I want to move to Paris, but sadly my boss said that's not going to happen. So yeah, sadly, not moving to Paris, but one can dream, right? Yeah, so that was that. On Monday it was back to work, which was pretty tough because we only got back around midnight from our trip. And like I said, work hasn't particularly been fun lately. But I'm trying to make the best out of it. I'm traveling a little bit less at the moment, which is good. I'm going to a big exhibition in 2 weeks, which is going to be fun. And I'm only really working for another 3.5 weeks, and then we're off to get married and all that. So not too bad. In terms of wedding prep, a weird sense of calm has come over me. I think maybe we're kind of ignoring the fact. We're both not worried about getting married. It's more the whole planning aspect and getting guests organized and figuring things out last minute. But I think we're on the right track. We have this huge box of wedding stuff now, like just the tiny things that you have no idea you need before you get married, and really you don't, but whatever. But it's all coming together. Had a minor DJ crisis yesterday, but that's all. It all seems to work out. And well, I don't know what's come over me, but I'm just very relaxed about it, which is not a bad thing, I think. I got my dress. I had my last dress rehearsal and or dress try on thing. Words, language, I have no idea. Anyways, I got my dress all finished, so now I just need to fit in it, which I think I should. We also got our wedding rings and they fit and they look amazing. So it's all becoming very real, but I'm also very happy about it, as I think it should be. I think that is it in terms of my ramblings. I'm just waffling on and not really telling anything interesting. So I think this is the right point to sign off. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. As always, I love to see you over in the Ravelry group or on Instagram. And I will talk to you again next week. Until then, have a great week. Happy knitting. Bye.